one of our series. We actually did a ton of stuff, and we learned about logging in with Turbo User Store, creating users. We set up an API that we dynamically retrieved all this data from. We have this activity indicator going to handle our data fetching asynchronously to give a good user UI. We just did a lot of stuff, and we're storing our token with async storage. That's getting passed checked by our switch navigator and routing us to the right screen accordingly. So we did a lot of pretty good stuff, but we didn't spend much time styling, is the downside of that, or the trade-off. And now, since we got through that video, I want to spend a little time just styling this up so that the rest of the time we work on our app, it actually looks good, and it just makes it a little more fun to work with. I mean, it's never fun working on an ugly app. So I'm personally not much of a designer, but I'm going to use this Sketch UI kit, and so we're going to use this, and it's kind of like a base to work off of, and yeah, hopefully that'll make our app a little more fun. And once we do this styling here, we will then move on to creating this screen here. So for example, here I have two messages from user Dan. They should not be showing up in a list. They should be collapsed into a conversation. And we're basically going to use the timestamps to sort them appropriately. So we get real conversations. And we'll see where that leaves off. And eventually we do have to get back to our login functionality, just because we need to give text inputs and stuff. But I think this is where I want to start now. So I'm going to open up my application, and I still have it running. And remember, if you guys stopped between videos, run React Native Start. So you have this bundler running, and then in another tab, you need to run React Native, run iOS, or run Android. All right, so now what we want to do is let's start with the message component. And let's just, if you look at our design here, well, this screen color is not what we have. 243, 243. So let's change that quick. And I'm also going to turn on, see our background color just changed there. I'm also going to turn on hot reloading. So what this does is it allows our changes to go automatically, so I don't have to keep refreshing. Now I think that actually, background color, I think this isn't showing because not showing these messages. Sorry, I have very bad vision. But we need to add some gap margin to these messages anyway, so we'll do that, and then we'll be able to hopefully see it. All right, so let's go to our message, and we did that work with the border color last time. I mean the border stuff last time, which we're gonna have to change now. But I don't mind doing that because that was kind of just demonstrating the passing of props and stuff. But now, based on the design, we have some padding here, so we're going to take this same border here where we do all this border pushing. We don't really need this anymore, so I'm going to comment it out for now. And I'm going to leave this so we can push in styles if needed. So maybe there's other things we're going to need to pass in. But I'm going to just change this to border width, so it should be all our borders. Let's refresh that. Again, sometimes it's hard to see, but we'll see as it spaces out. Okay, so next we need to add a little margin. Let's just try margin. Let's just give it 10, see what that looks like. Pull up our design. It's a little more. And then look, we're going to have that same issue again about the top and bottom stuff here. So let's do margin horizontal. I'll make it 15. And let's do margin bottom 15. So that's looking a little better. I think that looks decent. So we have to also have some padding in here. Let's just change our padding to 15, see what that looks like now. And let's spell it right, if possible. All right, so now it's inset a little, and it looks like they have a little like kind of border radius going on, so we're going to have to do that. So border radius. I'm going to give it a 5 just to start. So that looks pretty good. Let me get 10. Oh, I don't have to reload. I keep forgetting how hard. So that's looking like a better shape. Problem is now we're going off the side here. So let's get rid of this width 100% for now. I think that is a better setup. Yeah, so now we have the right shape, and this here, just because of the rendering of the, what's it called? These lines are so thin they don't display properly. And we're going to want to change this color. So we're going to also, first we're going to change our message to white. So, well, let's just double check that to me. Yep. And when you start like doing this a few times, you'll start getting used to it, and you'll learn like a little more about design. But well, it all depends what your interests are, because there's only like so many things you can do at once. But so there's our shape. It's getting better. By the way, you notice this toUser is now our ID because we changed it on the back end. All right, so we got our shape there. So for if you guys didn't watch the first series, we're going to do a little bit of like Flexbox. So we're going to have 2 flex rows here. 1, 2. So we're going to make these kind of 2 rows. And then this looks like it's kind of centered with this. So try to think of everything in like boxes, same as you would on web, and it'll help you kind of lay things out. So, I want to change this border color. It's a little like too dark, so here's more of like a shadow. Maybe they don't even have a border, it's just a shadow. That's a very slight 225. Let's try that. Border color 225. See how now it's a much slighter shadow. By the way, I'm sorry, I got a call earlier, so I stopped recording and started a new one. I don't remember if I mentioned it this time. So this UI kit is from Sketch, and it's free, but you need Sketch to display it. And I'm pretty sure Sketch is free for 30 days for like trial. So if you're watching, I would say download Sketch and just Google Sketch Elements UI Kit, and it's free, and you kind of see this and play around. And if you look, there's a whole bunch of different, like all these other screens and stuff, and then you can I haven't played around with it too much, but from what I understand, you go into one part and change some of the components and it flows through and whatnot. But yeah, so Sketch Elements UI Kit, kind of like that, and it's free, so download it if you want. Again, sorry, I had to stop because I got a call, so I don't know if I mentioned it in this version or not. All right, so we want to have this user image here and 2 rows. So let's jump back to our message. And sorry, guys. So in our first row where you want to have, so where it's now, that's going to become our timestamp. So we'll just keep that in our minds. We're going to have a from user, their photo, and timestamp in the first row, and the second row is going to be the contents. So props.message is the only one that's going to be down here. So we're going to make two rows. So use style equals let's call this styles dot should call it, I'm going to give them different names for now just in case we need different props. And this one's going to be bottom row. And so let's come down here and make our styles. So this bottom row, we're going to give a flex direction of row. So the bottom one, there's not really, we might not even need anything in here just because it's just our text, but we'll just leave it for now. And then here we're going to have the same thing, flex direction row. And so now you'll see we're grouping all this other stuff at the top, not in the format we want, and spilling out. But now we have our two pieces. And I'm not going to give any explicit flex sizing because we're going to have like variable length messages like this. And just to demonstrate that, I'm going to go to our backend quick to make sure we're like kind of working with some valid data. And we're going to go into our app here and go to your messages, data store, messages, and let's edit one or two of them so they have like different lengths. I'll Google lorem ipsum or whatever they always do. The official. So I'll just take some of this lorem ipsum. All right. So we'll update that. And we'll update this one to some more lorem ipsum. And let's refresh. See, now we have some, look how long these messages are now. So now we have better, more accurate data to work with. Okay, so I'm going to drop this down a little so you guys can see. I was expanding it through those tiny lines before, but I think we should be good now. So we have these two rows, and so in here we're going to want to kind of, if I'm looking, this almost looks like two columns right here. So this is going to be a row, which we have, we're just not displaying. We're going to split it up into two columns now. So we're going to split it in half, or two pieces. And yeah, so we can just split this into two. So let's jump back here. And so by the way, this to user right now is just, well, that's us. We don't even need that. So this from user is right now is just a string. We're gonna make that an actual profile, so it returns the picture and all that. And I threw my profile picture up in the last video to just kind of get prepared for that. So we'll get to that. So this is gonna have more stuff. But right now we just have a data string, and so this is gonna be a view. Like I said, we need two columns. Styles.user column, I'll call it. And whoops. And then this is going And for now, it doesn't really do anything for us. But what we want to do is in each of these columns, give them a flex of 1, and that's going to make them each only have half the screen. And then we can align the stuff differently. So I have this user column and time column. Flex 1. And they should inherit the flex direction from the parent. So I think on this one I could say justify content flex end. Oh, sorry, this is going to be flex start. And here we're going to have flex end. That should work. So see now this, so the flex column, the way Flexbox works again is you have anything in the same level. So like these are in the same level, these columns. So they add up the total flex, which one each is 2, right? So they add up their total flex, and then they get the ratio of that allotted to themselves. So 1 and 1, they each have half. For example, if I didn't want it to be even, let's say I gave the time one more, just you can see thirds. So see how that expanded out. So that's just kind of how Flexbox works. So this we're going to have to format. And that's going to be a little more extensive, so I won't get to that yet. We need a picture, first of all. So we need a picture. So let's import image from React Native. Oh, I already have it there, sorry. And user. We just want this kind of little circle, and we don't have this Twitter handle or anything, so we're just going to skip that part. Text props.user. Okay, so the first thing we want is our image. And so while I style this, I don't know if you remember, I attached to my profile a image. So if we go to our user store, I have this image. Well, I'm just going to copy and paste it for now. But the goal is eventually all the users are going to have these images attached like this. And that's what we're going to use. So we'll attach the whole user object and we'll automatically have their images. That's going to require a little back-end work. But to start, let's just say, so you have to give it a URI. Let's see what that does. I think we need to give a height. Well, I should bring this down below as well. Stop. Source. Whoops. Just give it a height, width of 20, and a border radius of 10. Just real quick, see what that looks like. Okay, I think this is actually source. I'm thinking in HTML. So there's my little image there. That's too small. By the way, so you can crop the image with Turbo. So what I'm going to do here is say const crop params equals, and what we do is if we come into the documentation real quick, go to the file storage. Sorry for the fast scrolling. I'm trying to get to the bottom here. I want this square one. Okay, so we want this square, and we're going to use the border radius. So this param here. So this is too small, so I'm gonna try 40. And get all this out of here. And let's just set the URI to this profile image. And then once we have the dynamic ones, we'll just swap out the one param here. Cropped image equals profile image plus, let's do this. So URI is going to be cropped image, and again, once we get our data store hooked up, we can just swap that out. And I think you can do. I always have trouble with this if you don't define any height and width. All right, I'm just going to make the height the same, so we don't do any cropping. Give an explicit height. And we gotta give border radius of 20. It's a nice circle. And that picture is not off-centered. I actually took it off-center in the first video, so that's why it looks kind of weird. But it's fine for now. Alright, so this is looking a little better. We gotta figure out this date stuff. We gotta figure out our font. So let's go here. I think we just have some more. Oh, so we need our name to the right of our picture. So the user column, we're going to make this flex direction row, actually. And now we're lined up here. We need a little spacing next to our name. Now let's check here. Do they use it? No, sorry. We need that text to be a little bigger. And I'm not sure why I'm not able to click here. Select layer, conversation. I gotta play around and get better with Sketch. But we can eyeball it for now. So let's increase our font size real quick on this top one. And give it a little padding. And I'm not sure what the default font size is generated by the system. Sometimes I think it changes from Android to whatever. So we do want to give a default here, just so it's not the default. If that makes sense. Let's give this a 16. See how that looks. 20. All right. Let's give some margin left. 20. 10. All right. That's looking a little better. I think we need more padding here, to be honest. So you see I'm just using these consistent numbers. So this row was called the bottom row. So I'm going to say margin top 20. And, because we don't have our Twitter handle thing here, I want to center this with the image. I think will look better. So here they have like these two things so it's centered, so we got to drop down our name so it's centered. So what we do is in the column, user column, I think it's going to be align items center. Let's give that a try. Yep, okay. So our main axis is a row, so to align items goes against the main axis, so that centers that. And this is looking pretty good. And then this text color is going to be lighter, or like what time it is. So what I'm going to do is, we want to kind of do that, like, you know, say now, yesterday, that kind of like, you know, they summarize it a little better. What I'm going to do for now is where we have this props.datetime, just again, the same as how we put in that lorem ipsum to make our UI a little more realistic, is I'm just going to take this and make a temporary attribute. So here we're just going to say yesterday. And see, look, now we already see, oh, that's not lined up properly, which we didn't notice before because our date time was so large. So we need to add some style here. Okay, styles.date. And we also said we want to give the message some default properties and not just leave it up to the system. So styles.message, styles.date. Okay. So first we need to align this at the end there. So that's that time column. I have here justify content flex end. I think maybe it's, let's try that. No. So something we did here is not good. Time column. All right, let me re-justify that because that's causing some kind of issue. All right. Style dot. Oh, okay, so this was a null and threw some kind of error. So styles. All right. So. Oh, you know, I have the default message thing here. So first, we'll call this message text. Okay, so this has to become message text. We already used that name. All right, this is back to normal. And this is styles.date. Okay, so this, let's just try this again. So this justify content, I will try align content here to see what happens. And that's that. That's not what we want. So this actually is supposed to be center. So justify center. Now let's do align items, flex end. So that's what we want. So that's looking better. So our user font size is 20. Let's make our message text 12. That's the standard. So that looks good. And let's just change this to, it's like a light gray. And I don't know why. I think I have one of the layers locked or something. Because you just put, the whole point is you're able to select these and you know, have all the font styles and everything right there. So I'll figure that out later. But for now, again, we're just eyeballing is good. And this is good because this is actually good because if you don't have Sketch or something, or you find another app that you want to copy, this is kind of how to do it. So I think this is actually a good way to approach it. So let's say you're doing, like in the last one we did the Instagram clone, we kind of just pulled it down, tried to copy it to the best of our abilities. Font size, make this 14. Yeah, I spelled that wrong before. And then font color, or it's just color is the prop. It's going to be, oh no, message we're not changing. We're changing the date color. User message text. Color. All right, so we're getting better with this UI. Now you see how we can't scroll here, right? So what's going on is these messages are kind of just like floating. Again, we were doing it by just all just kind of as we were going. We need to put them in like a holder, and what we're going to use is called a flat list. And so if you check your documentation, this is, by the way, one of the most common um, elements. I say like most important one. So it takes a list of data and a function to render the item. So what we're going to do is make an array of data, which is going to be our messages, and then the render item function is just going to be this message wrapper we're already using. So what we do is we actually got to jump back up to, you see this already looks like much better. I'll enlarge it. I mean, we still need to do these navs, which I'll get to, but we're getting closer. All right, so let's put these in our flat list. So go to home and import it from the top. And here where we map these messages, first, we're not even doing this last thing anymore, so we don't even need it. But let's just grab this message. We don't even need this. It's pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to say flat list data equals, we're storing them in state, right? So we can say this dot state dot messages, and then our render item is going to be, and so it's a function. So we're going to pass in an item, and we're going to return message. And I think what we want to do is say dot 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 item. Close this message off, and we need to close off this flat list here. And what did I miss? This takes an item. Okay, so what we want to do is take an item. Let's try this again. And we're just going to return message dot 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 item, and we'll see if this works. Cool. So look, now we are this works, right? Which is pretty neat. So now we can scroll through these messages. We do need to give, if you guys have noticed, we're getting this error here, missing keys for items. Make sure to specify a key property on each item or provide a custom key extractor. So luckily for us, we're just going to use the ID as the message, as its key. So if you come in here, we should be able to do it in here. We're just going to say key equals props.id. So each message has an ID we're going to use as a key. Let's see if that goes away. No, so it doesn't like that. And basically this is a performance thing, so for now it's fine, but basically React keeps track of your stuff via keys, and that's how it tells what changes. So if you don't give valid keys, it just causes all sorts of issues. I'll provide the key at the root there and see if that works too. Key equals, and I'm going to say item.id. Let's try that. And I think we have an ID stored with the returned with the, make sure. Okay, so I'm going to log and see what our key is here. All right, so here we response JSON.data console log. Okay, so here when we set this date, I'm just going to log our data just to see. Response JSON.data, which is an array. I just want one of those, so I'm just going to do that real quick, and we should stringify it. And let's pull this up. Dot schema, all this stuff. So it does have an ID. Oh, wait a minute. Was I calling it ID instead of key? Hold on. I might have just been doing something stupid. All right, let's get rid of this log. Logs. Got logs everywhere right now. So, okay. No, I was calling it key equals item.id. So that should work, but for whatever reason it doesn't like it. So what I'm going to do, and again, it's probably a mistake on my part, but there's this, this actually is a useful function. Let's say you're working with some sort of data source where you don't really have, let's say you don't have unique keys. You can make your own keys. It's called key extractor. So we'll turn my errors into a good opportunity to talk about this other useful prop. And I believe you pass in the same item. And what you want to do though is return something to be the key. So we're going to pass in the item. And I may have to check the item.id, the docs on this in a second, but let's give that a try. What doesn't it like? Cannot read property ID undefined. Oh, so item is destructuring this, so we just need ID. Maybe that's what the problem was before. ID is not defined. Okay, so we solved our issue and we have IDs. Our warning is gone. And I'll bring this to the foreground so we don't keep getting this error. The remote debugger. Oh, that's fine. So we fixed our keys. So this is extractor function. Basically gives each message a key. So if we inspected it, we would see they have keys. And so let's just say you were working with an array of the 50 states of the United States, right? So you can make your own key, and you'd say for the key, use item.statename or something, or some other unique value. When preferable, you want to go with database IDs, but when not, that's the next option. Okay, so now we can scroll. Our UI is looking pretty good. Now, if you notice in the other screen, these should be like links. So we click these, we go to a new page with all our messages. So let's go back to message. And we're just going to change this view here to touchable opacity. Oh no, we're going to need that view, obviously. It's like the most basic component. But change this to touchable opacity. And we're going to change this root right here to a touchable opacity. And change this to a touchable opacity. And so now you can click them. And I don't really like the default. So we need to change that to, like, let's say 0.8. And what that's going to do is now when we click these, it's not as, you want like a little feedback, but that's like a little like too much kind of. That's, let's do 0.7. You want like this a little bit of feedback so you know your touch is working, but you don't want that like flash. So that looks good. So now what we're going to do is on press here, we're going to navigate, which we'll have to get to in a second. So it's going to be this dot props dot navigation dot navigates to new screen called message. But we have not invented this screen yet, so that's going to have to hang out there for a little. And on press, this is just going to alert message. And then this, by the way, is going to have to become a callback, so like that. All right, so this is all hooked up. We're going to have to build out that screen. We are missing from our UI, though, this nice purple tab navigator. So I'm going to fix that real quick. And we're going to actually need this bar. The reason I was waiting is that comes with the navigation library. I don't have any place to navigate between, so now we're going to create a new navigator, and which will give us that bar, and then we can style it. And so we need what's called the stack navigator. So when we click this and we go to our individual message screen, those are like a stack. So they live in a stack navigator, and that's where we get that header from. So if you go back to our root here, let's import stack navigator. And so this home here is going to get replaced by our message stack, right? We're going to come up here, we're going to say const message stack equals stack navigator, and then we're going to pass in our screens. So we're going to have message is going to be, it's going to get confusing. All right, so we can have home. That's going to be our home screen. Home. And then we're going to have message. It really should be messages and message, but I don't want to keep changing names on you. And this is going to be a message screen, which doesn't exist yet. So we got to comment that out for now. And in this root here, let's just change this to main. And then we'll here home will say main. And then we shouldn't have any more references to home. Okay. So if you look now, we have this tab bar at the top. And I'll go back into what we did there in a second, but that was just real quick. So now we're in this stack. We're going to navigate to other screens in the stack, which right now doesn't exist, but will be that message screen. And if we come back here, we want to make this purple. And I'm going to just switch to their iPhone X for a second just to see how this looks real quick. So give me a second. Hardware, device. I have an iPhone 8, but I really like the, I don't know why. I really like this bar here, especially when you're like styling the app. For some reason, it feels like you're doing much more when you have it all set up, and the Navigator handles it all for you, which I'll show you, which is nice. So kind of makes it feel nice. So let me see if I have this on here. Nope. So I'm gonna just rerun that. I hope it doesn't open up the other phone. And so before I was looking, there's a lot of like very specific syntax for some of the navigation stuff here. And so this is how we want to style our header. So we can pass in this navigation options param. So I'm going to try that. If we come into here, and then we're going to say header mode, no. navigation options. And then we could do header. Let's say background color. And dude, if you guys want to go with the purple, we can do the purple. So 16255.243. And I don't see. Just launched our. Okay, whatever. I'll get the simulator up in a few next time we take a break. Okay, let's see if that works. Guess not. Objects are not valid as React children. Okay, let's pull up the documentation at navigation options, header. Okay, so it wants a function. Where it looks like. Again, a lot of this stuff's kind of a little confusing sometimes, so a lot of React. Let's just try that for a second, see if that works. So we lost our header. So I'm gonna check the actual documentation real quick. Navigation up. So this is the right one. I'm going to say navigation options, custom header example. I'm trying to set it in our root, but there. Okay, here we go. So we want to use this header style prop. So header style, background color. So I think the person who left this comment was using an old API, so they do change kind of frequently. So let's try this, header style. Let's see if that worked. All right, we got our purple header. By the way, see this status bar here is black. We probably want that to be white, I'm guessing. So I'm going to just pull this. Yep, so they have this as white. So what we can do is we can come into our, I'll put in the root for now. We want to import our status bar from React Native. And no, I won't do it there. I'll do it in our individual screen for now, just to not complicate things. But we can take this, we go to home, we import status bar. All right, so import status bar, and just drop it in. It doesn't really matter. It only can render in the status bar, but you need to put it somewhere. We're gonna say, what is it? Style. Bar style, set the color. Let's do light content and see how that looks. So now we have this as white, and we want to give a title in our screen here. So let's just, oh yeah, why is it not giving us a title by default? Title home. So let's pass in this header title style in our root. header title style. I'm gonna say font weight. Yeah, I like that, but bold font weight. We're gonna say color, make it white. But we don't have a title, so I'm just gonna say, I believe we can do, what we're supposed to do is, I'm gonna say home screen home title messages. Let's try that. Because they're doing it statically here. I don't really want to do that, but we'll just do it. So in each, there's this static method you can use in routes to interact with the Navigator, because it's kind of like a singleton. So what they're saying to do here is to, instead of setting your title here, so let's go back to how this was. If you come into your home route, you can just say pretty much anywhere in your component. So this doesn't really fit in with like some of the other like nav stuff you may have done, so it's a little confusing. There we go. So see right there, it says messages now. So now I'm gonna pause this video for a second because I need to pause them, otherwise they get too big for my computer. But this is a good place to stop. This is actually like a pretty nice UI now. Like we transformed it from. I wish we had a picture before. Well, you could pull up the old video, but like now we're looking pretty good. And now like, we have something nice to work with, and I'm feeling, I'd be like excited to keep building this out. So I'm gonna pause this real quick while I compress this video, and then when we continue, we got to build out this second page, which we're going to navigate to via this new navigator. And I got to throw in a tab navigator too. So if you see here, they have this tab. We're going to throw that in as well. And also when I come back, I'll have it running on the iPhone X. So as promised, I have the iPhone X here, and I found the command so we can write it on there. And just because the designs had it, and I said I wanted to show that this bar here, that we were satisfying that design requirement. So the command here is, I'll zoom in for a second, normal run iOS, but there's this extra flag, -- simulator equals, and it's iPhone X, capital P, capital X. So we're going to run that, and I think that we're going to have an issue with our async storage. So this right here, get item alert, that's what it was. Okay, so because we changed phone, we don't have our cookie anymore, so we can kind of test that setup in our root is working. So let's give this a try. So alerting null, it cannot find a token as expected. Can't find a token. Let's get rid of this, just comment it out for a second and make sure we're hitting this login here. So this dot login, then response, and I'm just going to log this response. And let's debug remotely. So let's make sure we're getting that login and hopefully setting that key. Oh, well, it already set by itself. So yeah, so it already logged in, and it was all handled in the root for us. Just got to refresh it. So that's working, which is good. Now, if you see here, Get item. Oh, we don't even need this get async get anymore because we're doing that in the root. So just get rid of that actually, now that I think of it. Make sure it still works. Yep. So if you see, our UI is actually looking like kind of like a real app now. And just to be thorough, I'm going to move this activity indicator to the middle. So let's go back to our home and styles.container. I'm not sure why it's not in the middle. Alright, I'm just going to leave it for now. I don't feel like... but anyway, so I think it's cutting off our container here until we get the larger content. But this is looking pretty good. And so this here, there's a React Native component to handle it called Safe Area View. But what React Navigation does is it implements that under the hood, so we don't have to worry about it. And we do need to add the tab bar too to match the designs. Let me pull back up our designs. I'll get to that in a second. For now, we're going to go back to that message page. So, and by the way, see how this here is messages? We're going to basically, when we click the person, have the header up there say their name, and then we're going to have like a little back arrow. A lot of it's handled by default by the library, but we'll get to that. So we get a new screen. Let's call it message. I don't know about message. I'm going to say conversation. And export it. And create the file. Same way we set up all our components. View, style sheet, text, image. Actually, we're not going to need an image. I think I'm going to try to reuse this message component here. Well, let's check the designs. What are they doing? Tell me about that. So it's a slightly different UI. So we'll create the actual message in its own component. So we're not going to need to use the image component here, because it'll be like this. Messages. Oh, they're doing the same thing here. So they have back to messages. The user's name there. So we're doing the same exact thing. Oh, then eventually we'll add this create new message button. That's probably going to be video 3, to be honest. Okay, so view, style sheet, text. So the first thing we want to do is just render an empty view, and we want to make sure that when we navigate here we can hit that screen. So let's go to our app where we do all our routing, and here we have authenticate. Let's also import conversation, and here where we had message, we're going to just call this. That's just a key, so let's just change it. Conversation. I'm sure you guys can tell I can barely spell, so if you can't spell, good news is you might have a career as a programmer ahead. So right now we're not navigating to that screen, we're just alerting. And if you remember, we created a property, a function to call on the onPress property in message. So the naming is going to be a little weird here because, like in a text message, I guess this would be like called threads or something. So we can maybe change that if you want. But for now, right here, we got to uncomment this back out. And we're going to navigate to conversation. And right now we only have one conversation, and it's a blank screen, I believe. So let's give it a try. Cannot read props. Oh, okay. So the way the React navigation works, if you go back to our directory, our root, so each of these screens here, home and conversations, anything that's in the Navigator has access to the navigation property. If not, you can either, there's like so our message is nested further in, so it doesn't have access to that property. So what we need to do is pass it that property, or there's other ways where you can navigate from anywhere, import different packages from the SDK, but I think the best way is just to pass it down a level. So again, to reiterate, only these things in the immediate stacks can actually have access to that navigation prop. So we need to pass that to our messages so they can use it too. So if you go back to home, flat list, so here, this message, we need to also give it a navigation prop. And I'm not even going to give them the much information. I'm going to write my own method here. I'm just going to call this nav. And I'm going to say this dot nav. Whoops. This dot navigate to message. And what I'm going to do here is pass in this same item. So I'm going to call this conversation, get our terminology straight. By the way, it's usually best practice to any of the component methods have above your custom methods. And this is going to get that item. And for now, all I want to do is log item. So make sure everything is hooked up. So we have this navigate to conversation method. And then down here, in each of our messages, we're passing through this method. And I think we need to do find this and the item. I think that is correct. Let's give it a try. Okay. Oh well, this has to go. And we're just going to say on press this .props.nav. Get rid of all this. It's going to be a very dumb function. It doesn't really know what it's doing. So all the logic is going to be in the parent. This all it knows is if I'm pressed to navigate somewhere. Cannot read nav of undefined. This .props.nav. this dot nav conversation message. All right, so let's jump back up to our component, and again, I'll troubleshoot one step at a time. Nav this dot navigate to conversation. All right, let's get rid of all this. Let's just give it some random, easy to use prop called nav. I feel like I binded something wrong. Navigate to conversation dot bind this. Cannot read nav. Oh, okay, guys. So this is the message is a stateless functional component. So here we're calling this. There's no this. Remember, everything is props dot. Like if we go down here, styles. Oh, well here. So anyway, like even this user, we don't have like here props dot from user. So there's no this. So sorry about that. So all we need to do is change this to props.nav, and let's go back to our home, and this should work. But again, famous last words. All right, so I press this one. Let's check our debugger. I still have debugging. Yeah, it should be going. All right. So it's not logging, which is not good. So navigate to conversation. And for some reason it doesn't like something we're doing. So I'm going to remove this argument for now. Just navigate to conversation. Okay. And let's go back to our message. On press. Oh, we have to call it here. Okay, so let's try this again. Alright, so it's pressed and undefined. We're not passing anything through. So again, right here we have to actually call the function. So I just missed that when we were editing. So now it's working. We want to pass that data back through. So if we jump back to home here. We have that dot item. And if you look, it passes through our item now. So what we can do is we have access to this item here, and we don't really need access to the message itself, right? For now, we'll just pass it through, but we really need for these messages, like this is our like inbox or threads, we really just need the user, the from user. And then we can need to use that to fetch more messages for the conversation, right? So if you look here, we have to user, from user. So this here, Rob, this is eventually going to become like an ID once we're creating all these. But for now, we have this from user Rob, right? So let's log item.from user, and let's refresh this. And look, now we have who the message is from. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to call this.props.navigation. This is what I was saying before. We couldn't do it from the child. It has to be in the direct component from that's hooked up to the Navigator. We're going to navigate to conversation, and I believe we can just pass this in like this, user. And I typically use Redux, so sometimes I don't pass too much between the components, so I forget. But item.fromUser. So let's pass that in, and then right here, let's do a component did mount and console log, and I think it's going to be this.props.navigation.state. So we want to basically see that we have some sort of parameter so that we can see, so look, we successfully navigated to our component, and we have some params. Yeah, we have params. We have our user. So let's just do const user So const user is this.props.navigation.state.params. So it'll be a little briefer for us. And then basically what we want to do is fetch conversation with user. All right. So now we have this screen. And look, I said we would fix this here. So let's also I want to see if I could do this. Make it a class variable because it shouldn't change. Let's see if this works. This.user, and then static navigation equals, and I'll say header title, and if you guys ever look at the docs here, there's so many different like features and stuff. You really need to just like check the API most of the time. Navigation options. Header title, perfect. And let's just see if I can do this.user. I'm not really sure if this will work. Let's find out. And that's our answer. This.user. All right, we'll get back to this because this is going to be more complicated. We can do this. Const user navigation set params current conversation is going to be user, and I think we can do something like this. Navigation options, it's going to take in a navigation object, and we want to return again, no guarantees this will work. Navigation dot state dot params dot current conversation. Actually, I think most likely it won't. Cannot read params. All right. So basically, these headers are static, and you need a way to talk to them. And the reason I will just keep debugging this, figure it out, is because we're going to have to do the same thing with that button. So basically, like normally your components are talking to each other. The navigation has its own weird properties, and it's a little different. So here, header buttons. Okay, so header interaction with the screen. Okay. Alright, so we're close. So this we need to destructure here. And what else do we need? So this props the navigation set params we did. And header title is going to be navigation.state. Okay. So sometimes when it's mounting, I think it takes a second. So you'll see here, they do this or, like a fallback. So you can do or no. All right, let's try this one more time. Turn header title. Well, you could also just do this to make sure we have it set up right. Let's just turn this to a string real quick, see what that does. All right, so that's working. So we just need to get this param. And I don't know why it's not working. Okay, so they can just reference it here actually. See button on, press params dot increase count. This dot props dot navigation dot set params. Oh well, they're doing the whole destructuring here. Let's do that. So const params, and then this is going to header title is going to be params dot current conversation or null. Let's see. Let's give it one more try because I really, now that I'm invested in this, want to see what we're doing wrong. Takes navigation object params. Return header title. And set params. Make sure that's right. I don't know. It looks good to me, so I'm just gonna leave it for now. We'll figure it out later, and I'm just gonna make sorry, one last thing. Okay, so I'm gonna give the default just say conversation until we figure that out. React navigation is a little difficult to work with some of this stuff. It's not very some of it doesn't fit very well in like the React paradigms, if you will. So it's just a little different than you're used to. And we want to make this white. So this one I think I got. If we go to our root, because we're going to want it white anywhere. Here we have this header style. there's a header tint color, and I don't know, again, this is just what I think is kind of difficult to work with, if this is a navigation option, if it's part of the header style. So what I'm going to do is just search here for tint color, header tint color, and it looks like it's its own property. And we're just going to say header tint color. Well, I guess it's not going to be an object. I think it's just going to be alright, so that looks good. We have our conversation here. We need to come back and figure out what we're doing wrong with dynamically setting this, but that's fine for now. So what we want to do is when we get to this conversation, we want to fetch from our API all conversations with this user. So just to make sure we have it set correctly, where is this conversation? State. Oh, you know what? This could actually be our issue right here. No, all right. Let's just log our. Maybe we're not. Maybe our users right here is not being set properly. Anyway, we need to take this user and fetch them from this. Fetch all their conversations from the server. Okay, so that's set up fine. Oh, look, it's fixed now. So when we were changing this around, we had params.user, and this basically this syntax here. So like this would work. But this syntax basically says it adds like an extra attribute. So this was really looking for user.user, which was null. I'm actually surprised that we got this part right. But yeah, so all right, so we fixed that part, so that's good. So look, and I don't like that it goes blank and then changes while we mount, so I'm gonna just have nothing until it loads their name. Okay. All right. All right. So now that we have our user, we need to fetch their conversations from the server. So what we're going to do is we need to import our config here. And we're going to say fetch, and it's going to be config plus we need to check our config and see if we end in a slash, which we do. So it's going to be actually, so you know how before we searched all our messages just for us? What we're going to do is copy that same method. So go to home, and we're going to change the query to the other users' messages. So all right, we need this fetch part. You know, I'm going to write it out because I don't want to encourage copying, and I'm not. As I've said, I've usually use different libraries, so I'm getting used to using fetch. So let's just write it out, get the practice. But as we check the config, we don't need the trailing slash. We're going to say API / message, and our query string this time is going to be let's use the backticks. And I think we call it from user, to user and from user. From user, and it's going to equal this user here. Whoops, sorry. So this is just regular text, and then this is going to be our user. Query, and we're going to say const URL is going to be config plus API plus message plus query. And you can use the backticks if you want here. In fact, we probably should to be consistent. Alright, so we're going to fetch our URL, and I think we have to pass in our options. So I wonder if we have to pass in options if it's just a get. What about the default the get is? Yeah, let's just try. I'm just curious. And by the way, we hooked up this query before, so this should work if we are doing this right. Fetch URL, then response. This is the part that drives me crazy. Return response .json, then response JSON. All right. Well, we didn't get any errors, which is good. Let's check our debugger. Network request failed, so that's not what we want. Network request failed. Let's log this URL. Alright, so here we don't want config, we want config.base URL. Sorry guys, I'm tired. Long day. Config.base URL. I'm not getting this URL log on 21. Maybe my packager stopped running, I guess. I'm gonna restart the packager. URL equals config base URL. Should be good, but apparently not. So let's reload, rebuild. Alright, so our URL was wrong, and for some reason we need to restart our packager. It happens. So anytime you're putting some logs or something and they look kind of like funny, as you restart your packager. So if you look here, we have success, an array of 1. And the from user on this should be Rob. Now I believe on Dan I made 2 messages. So what we want to see here is when I click this, we should get back an array of 2 messages with all our conversation. So right now we're hitting the message endpoint with, we're getting all the messages. So right here we got 5 because there was messages on the from side from Dan that are not to us. So we need to really be searching for both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this whole method, and you know what? It's time that we got to move this to its own class, because we should not be copying this. But basically, this one we need a to user and a from user. So what we're going to do for the messages, we should only be able to see messages from we should only be able to see messages where we are one of the users, no matter what. So we're going to make a common utility function with the messages, and it's always going to load in that async token of ours. So that should prevent that error we have here, and we'll come back to render these. Or do we want to draw these now to the fun part? No, let's get the annoying part out of the way quick. Okay, so let's just take this entire item here, copy it, comment out the old one. So what we're going to do now is and save. You should have no messages on our home page now. Hence this never-ending activity indicator. So now our goal is to get these messages back through our utility function. So let's see. Well, I need to make a new directory here. We'll call it utils. And let's make a function of file index.js. We're going to say export default. And the first one is going to be fetch messages, and we know it's going to look something like this. So we have to decide as the API creator what we exactly want to take in, what we want to pass out. So first thing is we want to insert this async storage key into all our query strings, so that we as the user have no option but to get messages to us. Now the one I'm trying to think of, if we send a message then it won't show up, but to user, that's an interesting thing we have to consider. So we have a to user and a from user. We want to also in our conversations see the messages we're sending, which is something we'll have to think about. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get more into some custom API functions, but for now I want to just kind of isolate this this method here, and we'll finish styling the other page, and we can get back to how we want to handle this kind of use case. So if we async get, so we need to import config, right? Because we're still calling that config. Fetch messages. Okay, so for now, we're going to put this we're going to call additional query params. And we're going to take a JSON object and add it to our query string. But our base query string is always going to start with the to user key from async storage. So async storage.get item. So we have that base query, and again, we'll handle later the situation that we need to have ourselves included in the message. But for now, this will accomplish our needs. Return fetch. So this actually might almost be done now that I'm looking at it. So it's pretty much the same. We just need to give, so when we run in the home screen, it'll work fine. We just need to basically add our extra query parameters in here. And we've been dealing with like simple queries with no spaces. I'm wondering if there's like a simple npm to convert to query string. Query string. 3 million downloads in the last week, so this looks to be a parsed So they're doing the opposite. They're parsing into an object. We want the reverse. Oh, here, stringify object into query string. Okay, so this should do fine. So let's install this. It's popular. And again, we've been dealing with simple queries like this, but let's just pretend we have more advanced stuff. There's no need to rewrite the wheel. So let's install that. Let me just check that yep, okay. And they're not using ES6 imports here, so I'll just copy them to be the same. Okay, and so with the method we need is query string dot stringify. And it looks like they add in the actual question mark and stuff that we've been using. So what we want to do is we're going to say const params. It's going to be empty. Sorry, let params. And when we get this item here, key, we're in this async storage. We need to add it to our params. So we're going to say params.toUser equals key. So that's adding to this string here. And then let query equal query string dot stringify our params. And we can now add in our additional params here. So we don't know what kind of parameters we're going to have, so we're going to parse through them all. So let's do this. Object.keys. So this will give us all an array of the keys of this object. For each key, and let's keep this scoped out here, the root. And for each key, we're going to say each key additional query. Oh no, sorry, params.key or subkey. So this, what we're trying to do is parse all these keys into our params object, and then we're going to add in our toUser. So params.key is going to equal additional query params sub the same key. So that should work. And then async get, we add our key in there, and hopefully this query string thing works. And we'll log that query string and just to see if that's all set up, because that was kind of a lot of changes at once. Let's just see how that query string is looking. So what I'm going to do is go back to home, and we're going to import our utils. And right here, we can get rid of all this now. Well, I'll leave it because I want to show you we need this set state. But yeah, I'll leave this set. I'll leave this. We need this set state stuff. Messages. I'll leave that part with the set state items. Okay, so we're going to say utils dot, I don't remember what I called it, fetch messages. And we're just going to call it with no params for now, just to see what our console log says. Oh yeah, import async storage there, guys. So it looks like they don't add the question mark. So let's just take a look quick. To user. All right, so I'm just going to give a question mark because I don't see it in there. I don't want to spend too much time, but I just want to throw in here just to like from user, and we'll put Dan. And now let's see what that query string looks like. So now we have this complex string, and when we use this one, it'll filter only our messages. So again, remember before when we first did it, it sent all the messages from Dan. So we were seeing messages he sent to other people. Now we're saying only to me, only from him. So this appears to be working in terms of the actual string. What we want to do now is, well, this here, this fetch utils fetch messages. Here we want all our messages to ourselves because by default it puts in our key, so that's fine. Well, on the second page, I'm going to copy that method, this conversation. I'm going to just paste this for later. And this user here is just going to be our user variable from up there. So again, pasting that for later. And let's go back to our utils, and we got to decide how we want to return this. And I'm thinking we return a promise. So return fetch. That's fine. Then we get our response. Whoops. Return response.json. All right. So I think that we want to return right here, response.json, and catch our errors in our components. So I'm going to give that a try. All right, so we want to return this whole thing to our control to our components. So let's go back to our home.js, and so here we're going to say then. We should be able to take this same stuff right here, then response.json. Let's give that a try, see if that works. Cannot convert undefined or null. Alright, so we didn't do something right. So utils.fetch messages. Let's see if we hit our oh, you know what? We have query string. We have our all our logs in here, so let's see if we got anything good back. Oh, you know what? I think it needs a we need to pass in nothing or check for null. So let's just, that could be it. Well, let's try. Cannot read then of undefined. So perhaps we're not returning our promise. You know, let's just return our data. I think is a better option here. Do I return the promise? Cannot. I'm just trying to figure out where we're kind of getting control. Let's just log. Let's throw a console log here on the front end. See if any of this logs. Confirmation fail. No such resource. So our URL is off. So that's a good thing. So we're hitting our endpoint. So let's jump back to our utils and oh, okay. So we need to put the question mark here, like we said. It was treating the entire thing as a query string. And look, there's all our messages. So we returned control to our component. And again, just to reiterate, that question mark was not getting added to our query string, so we need to add it here. So the bad URL was causing an error. So this looks to be working fine. Now what we want to see is if I go to this page, does it return? Well, we're not even really, just to demonstrate UI, I'm going to take the same message object, even though we want to use a different one. In conversation, import message from /view and let's just log the data. Let's go back to home and just, what do we do here? Response JSON. Let's just copy and paste this into our conversation. Messages. Then response JSON. Okay. And one thing we want to do is give a constructor. We want to have a empty messages object. So we're doing this very similar thing. Call super. And same thing we did in the other component. I mean, we're missing some styling, so it might look all wonky. I guess we'll find out. But we want to loop through our messages. And we want to return that same message object. Again, we'll phase that out later, but for now I want to see if our stuff is working properly. And pass in that same ... message. Utils is not defined. So we got the one conversation from Rob, which there is only one, so that's good. Now we want to see for Dan, we should get 2. And the important thing is that we're only getting the conversations between the 2 of us. So there's 2 here. So it's working. And just to reiterate that is working, if we go back to the utils and where we do this params to user, if we get rid of this part where we set the param, I'm going to get 5 messages here from Dan that were 2 different users. So again, we're making sure to query on both params. So I hit Dan. See, now there's 5 messages. So our utility function is working, which is nice. Cool. And again, now we're not repeating code. So if we want to change our fetch library, which I wouldn't be opposed to, as you guys can probably tell, you can just come in here. Cool. So that's looking pretty good. And now we can query on just our, like we have this conversation view. Again, the one thing we have to figure out is our sent messages. So how we want to handle that. I'm going to take a real quick break, and we come back. We'll deal with the sent message and just adjusting. I'm just going to actually use this common message component for now. We can adjust it later if we want, but it's not bad, and it gets the job done for now. So I'm going to leave this for now, but what we do want to do is figure out. Oh no, we are going to have to adjust it because we want it to show up on like the left and right. So ignore that. We'll adjust it. We do need to deal with this from user to user situation. So we haven't made any messages we've sent yet, but we're going to be sending them. And right now it's only going to return the ones to us when we click these conversations. So let's just switch it up real quick. Let's style this out. I'm going to open up back our sketch file. And as you can see, it's going to be pretty similar UI. And what we're going to do is we're going to make each one of these a message. And we're just going to make the like this whole row. And we're going to kind of like cheat and have the same background color. So it's really just one component here. That's going to flow nicely. And we're going to basically then on our server side get back a to or from prop, and we're going to do some kind of custom logic to basically request all messages involving to build out the conversation. Again, the problem now is we're not getting our sent messages. Okay, so this will be real easy here. So let's just pop back open our editor, and we're gonna make another view component called message short, whatever you want, doesn't matter. All right, and we gotta create that file. And I'm gonna just copy that entire message. Again, I don't recommend copying and pasting, but I'm also not trying to make this series go forever. But let's just take this entire method here and paste all this. Let's leave most of this style stuff in for now. It's not going to be a touchable. It's going to just be a view. Do that. Get rid of this on press, active opacity. Get rid of this. We'll comment out this stuff for now. I have to decide how we want to handle the images. Style.push. We don't need any of this stuff. And if we check the designs, all it really is picture, text. They don't even have times on here, right? So let's find this props.message and let's get rid of the rest. So we have now we're just left with a view. Styles.bottom row, styles.message text. Yes, they're keeping this text the same, so we'll keep that styles.message text, and that's something you should probably at some point extract out to a common class, but I digress. So we pretty much got rid of most of it. We are going to have to make a. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make this. I'll show you. So this here is going to be a flex row, and then for our flex direction, we're going to conditionally assign based on if it's a to or from message, row reverse or regular row. That'll flip these for us. That's kind of a neat way to do that. So we'll do that. So view style. Let's just see what this looks like right now. Oh, you know what? I don't want to. I should bring back that image for now. View image. I don't know why I got rid of that. So I'm gonna grab that. Fast forward. And so this message does need its own view because it needs to be wrapped in the border and whatnot. Then we're going to have this view here for our image. So this is going to be, we'll call it going to get rid of this flex stuff and just say user direction row profile. We don't even need most of these fonts. I'm sorry, most of these styles, but I'm just going to leave them for now. And let's go to our conversation view. And let's import message short. And let's change these messages to message short. Style is not defined. Sorry about that. All right, so sorry, I just got distracted by that message. Style equals Alright, so before we were making this custom style, which we got rid of, so we need to just throw back in the default one. Cropped image is not defined. And let's throw this back in now. Should lay these out. Alright, so it's rendering now some component, but we don't want it to look like this, right? We want our picture and then the text, or their picture and the text, and we want it in that conversation view with one on each side. So let's get to work on that. So view style. Okay, so this styles.message. Border color. So this one here really should have the styles.message. This is becoming our kind of message with our border and whatnot. So I'm gonna do that. And this I'm just gonna have no style for now. We'll just see what happens, alright? Oh, I should put it back on hot reloading. Actually, we'll make this a little better. So this is not how we want it. We want this lined up with this. And if we check our file, they don't even put the users in, the username in, because we have their name up here, right? So it's a little UI thing. The designer said that's how it should be. All right, we'll listen to them. So let's get rid of the user here. And we need these two lined up now, right? So this view is going to be, let's call it style equals styles.container. All right, so by the way, we're using message, profile, user column. I don't even know if we need right now. Anyway, let's get rid of bottom row, top row. We're not using. Time column we're not using. Profile we are. User we're not using. This we are. This date we're not. All right, let's strip down those styles. And what we want to do here is container. Something's off with my indentation. It's fine. Alright, so here we're going to say flex. We're not going to give it a flex direction because that's going to have to be assigned dynamically, and we're not going to be able to do that except within the component. So we're going to say display flex. Actually, I don't even think we need to do that. That's a web thing. I think it's all flex by default. Maybe we don't even have to give it anything. Maybe we can do it all dynamic. I'll leave this blank for now. And up here, we're going to say const container style. And again, I'm just going to use it right here for now. We'll pass it all dynamic, see what happens. And let's say flex direction row. Okay, so that's going to say flex direction row. That gives us this line up here, right? And now watch this. This is the important part. If we do row reverse, let's save it. And now we're on this side. So if we can somehow dynamically decide like and this is going to be something we need to evaluate. So say user or sent message, props.sent message. So right now these are all false, right? So basically now we need to pass in a prop for is it a message we sent or not. And we need to actually have it the other way. Well, we also have our, we'll figure out as we go. But see, now you see how we can just kind of flip this on the fly dynamically. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to give some styling to this actually. Container style. Const direction. So let's do a style.container style. Right, is that what we called it down here? .container. And then we're going to say container style dot push this direction. So it's an array. We're going to add that to the array. And style is not defined. Styles. Alright, and let's just come down here. And let's just give this full screen width. So we're getting this overrun off the page I want to deal with quick. See, our message shouldn't be running out of here, which is what I want to fix. So give this needs some margin. Container style. Maybe we want some padding. Alright, that's better. And then on the message, padding. Maybe we want to get rid of this margin. No. See, I want to get it lined up, but for some reason we're spilling out at the moment. Margin 20. And profile. Let's give some margin to our profile. Maybe that'll fix some of this. No. Padding. This is fine for now. we'll clean it up in a little bit. And let's just go to the conversation with 2. Well, we have too much padding between them. So that's better, but see, this we need to clean up. Margin, horizontal, 20. We need padding. Alright, so and let's on our message get rid of this. This could be throwing us off partially. Get rid of the padding and stuff here. Let's get rid of its horizontal margin. Margin. All right, that's better. So we want 40 padding, 20 margin. And we do want some on the top. It's a little confusing because we're kind of like faking this box, so it's kind of a little weird. Whoops, sorry guys. Margin top. 20. I'll go back to the same scale we had before. Everything 15, and this is going to be 30. And get rid of the okay, so that's now the same scale as here. Or alright, I'm just going to leave it for now. I don't want to go crazy with this. Sometimes the little styling stuff can be a pain. It's just fine for now. We need to deal with that to from issue. So let's fire up our API. And let's make a new route. Router.get resource. Let's make a custom route. We're gonna call it let's see. It's gonna be almost the same thing here, except we're gonna do 2 searches. So grab this old route where we're doing our resource, right? And we're gonna call it let's give it a non-variable name. Message me, okay? And it's going to take 1 query param, and what it's going to do is that query param is going to return any messages with you and the person, so both sides of the conversation. And we're going to have to go into our data store quick and change one of them so we can see if it worked, but we don't need this valid resources because it's an explicit request. And so basically we're going to have, like here where we do data, we have to do 2 requests. We're going to say const data equals this. And for the first query, we're going to pass in the same thing. We're just going to split it up and do 2 separate queries. So const first equals, we're going to say toUser query dot toUser, and our second const from user query dot from user. All right, and then so now we're going to fetch with our first query, And right here, we're not going to res success. We are going to data dot, hold on, data, okay. For each, let's just say message, and I'm going to say data dot push. We're going to change the name here. This scoping is going to be confusing. Messages dot push message. All right, and then we're going to say return, continue the promise chain, turbo dot fetch. By the way, this resource, we don't have any params here. We have to explicitly, let's get rid of this. And here where we say, we're going to say const resource, SOURC equals message. All right, so fetch resource first, return turbo.fetch resource, and our second query. And then here, I'm just going to call this message. I think you could just call it the same param, but I just don't feel like getting stuck on something if that's not the case. And we're going to say messages. We're going to just copy and paste this for each. Then message. Wait, then data for each message. Okay, so I'll call this data 2. And again, I think you just call it the same thing. So then data for each message, push message should be fine. And then here in our second one, we can res.json confirmation success. But here for our data, we're going to pass in that messages. This should have the information for both. So let's run this locally first, see if it works. So I'm going to say turbo dev server. Now let's jump into our API quick. Documentation. Do it every time. And if you go to our data store and we go to, so this is, we should create another user actually, just because, well, we'll get to that later. We want the actual real user instead of a fake one. For now we have these fake users, so I'm just going to go into our message objects. And we have all these from users, right? I'm just going to make one or two of these. I'm going to just flip them, right? So I'm going to go to, just because there's these Dan ones here, so we can actually create a conversation. So here, to user, from user Ryan to Dan. Oh, I can't get rid of the one from my mom. We'll get rid of Rob. We don't need Rob. To user from, wait, I want to do from user, yeah, okay, to Dan, update, so to, all right, so I have two from me, and the point is I have enough of, I should have enough for both cases. Now, let's go to localhost. Now, we're not even giving any params, so this shouldn't really render anything. So let's just see, /messages/me. API/message/me. Okay, success, resource, ID, APIs. Oh, you know what? We have another route that may be interfering. Comment that out for a second. Slash. Okay, let's just see what this does. Cannot get message. Okay, so. Oh, well, it's a query, so. It's returning both halves because we didn't pass any params. Let's jump back to our app and let's just log a query string real quick. Actually, we should be able to make one. If I open this and we have it, we can grab our user ID from here. So that's me, right? So let's go back to here. I'm going to say from user and to user. So we got 4 items. So we don't want double though. So it's basically so what this is doing is it's getting it's a little off. It's not exactly what we want, I don't think. And okay. Resource a second. Okay, so to user is all right. That should be. It's a little more complicated than I'm expecting. Give me a second to think, so we can seal this off real quick. So actually, it was pretty easy, and we may at some point want to change our terminology on the all around. But so for now, we have a to user and a from user, right? And the problem was we were only getting the messages on the one half of the conversation, right? So our first query is going to be exactly that one half of the conversation. So I'm going to say to user, query to user, from, query from user. And again, we should probably call this like user A and user B or something, but for now it's fine. And so what we're going to do though is on the second query, we're going to flip them. So from user is going to become to user, and to user is going to become query from user. And when we do this, if we refresh our page here, shoot, I just had it. Oh, great. To user, query to user. Oh, right here, from user. Whew. All right, so look, now we got our 4 messages, and look, from, to, so I'm the from user here, and I'm the to of the from user here, and then here I'm the to user and the to user. So we have both halves. We are not yet sorting by time. That'll be in the, we'll do that in the next one. That's going to be a little more advanced. But what we need to do is return these. And what do we want to do here? Okay, so what we're going to do is in the API, we're going to basically, we can handle that locally. It's pretty easy. So this should return these messages. As again, I'll do it one more time, make sure we're looking good. All right, we got our 4 messages. So I'm going to throw this up, turbo deploy, and let's go back to our app. And So here we're getting this message, right? So we want to pass in a prop letting us know if we want to be, is it a sent message, right? Or, so we're calling this sent message. So what we want to do is go into our conversation view, and here we got to pass in some prop. And we're going to say const sent message is going to equal, and we're going to say message dot, oh wait, we got to move this up. Well, we need to pass sent message equals sent message, and sent message is not defined. Okay, so const sent message is going to equal message dot, so this is going to be a true or false. So, and what we're going to do is say the from user equals, and we don't really have any state management set up, so I think the easiest thing to do is this user here. We will set locally. We'll just make a local instance of it. Start user. Well, we have this. We're already actually this.props.navigation. We have this here. I'm just going to take it. So I don't have to make any more variables. Dot user. Okay, and so this should be complete. Oh, we have to edit our route. So message slash me. And let's see. No. Slash message slash me. And then the query, we have our from user. We should have our so we want to get rid of this query here actually, because I believe oh, we're not even using. All right, so go to this URL, right? And we have this util fetch messages from user. So we're not getting back what we want. Let's just check the endpoint quick. Slash API slash message slash me. And let's grab this query string that we were just using. So there's 4 items. So that should be working. Let's just check our parameters. From user to user. All right, and then here, from user is user, so that should be okay. Let's log the response. I mean, I assume we're only getting 2 back, so. Oh no, so we get all 4 back, which is good. So we're probably just passing in something wrong to our Oh wait, that's home.js. That route, again, array of 2, which is not what we want. So what's going on here is what we need to figure out. So from user here, let's go to our fetch messages. We can find it. Oh, so the fetch message, we're explicitly hitting the message endpoint. So what we want to do is pass in an endpoint. And we'll leave the rest the same. And then here where we say message, we're going to say endpoint. And we need to come back to our home directory here. And where we fetch message here, the first argument is going to be message, just the regular endpoint. And okay, and then in our conversation view, we're going to say message me. Give that a try. So our home messages are still rendering. And look, now we have this conversation view with dynamic where we're on each side. So we got exactly what we wanted. We have to adjust the margins here, and we have to sort by time. But now you can see we have these conversations now. And so next we have to put this into a flat list so we can scroll and sort by time, but our messaging app's coming together. So next video we're going to do, just fix this real quick. Then we're going to do, this will take like 5 minutes, drop in the scroll, some styling. Then we're going to do create messages with that button that's going to go here, so we can type messages in the conversations. And then also log in. So that's going to be the next video. Logging in with actual text, like we just faked the login before. But yeah, so it's coming together. We've done some more work with the API. We've done some styling, starting to look decent, starting to have some real functionality. Sorting we'll do in the next video as well. And yeah, all right, guys, that was fun. I'll see you in the next one. And yeah, so we're halfway there. Let's keep going. It'll come together pretty nice.